Call to order the September 25th meeting of the Cary Town Council. And at this time, I will recognize Councilmember Bush for our ceremonial opening.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to take a brief moment to recognize this season. Normally, we recognize the Christmas season in December, so many holidays, but this is actually a season that has significant meaning for several religions and ethnic areas, ethnic and cultural communities, and it's often a time of celebration, renewal, and deep reflection. For example, in my own Jewish tradition, the high holidays, or high holy days, depending on how you say it, of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, invite people to look inward and to renew their commitments and embrace the new year, and to ask for forgiveness for people that we may have wronged over the year. And in the Hindu tradition, the Festival of Lights, Diwali, celebrates the triumph of light over darkness, and you can join us all in celebrating that triumph at Diwali on October 11th at Coca Booth. But the season is really marked by an emphasis on the possibility, on all of us being together and healing together. And we have seen in our community that this particular community, the caring place that we call Cary, these kinds of values truly inspire us all. And so for this September, I'll ask that we all remember that we're part of something larger and bigger than ourselves, that we have a diverse and vibrant community where our traditions are celebrated, and that each and every voice in our community is important, and we should, as a group, seek to build bridges and strengthen our ties and care for one another. So with that, I'll ask you to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Bush. First order of business is to adopt the agenda. I would entertain a motion to do so.
So moved.
There's a motion.
Second.
And a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now move to recognitions, reports, and presentations. And I'll invite the town manager, Sean Stiegel, to meet the 2025 APWA Professional Manager of the Year, Brandon Baczynski, at the podium for the recognition of this award and the fleet team.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Brandon, come on up here. I want to begin with a recognition that makes all of us proud. Our own Brandon Baczynski has been named the American Public Works Association's National Fleet Manager of the Year. That is no small honor, and it reflects not only Brandon's leadership, but also the work of the entire fleet team, many of which are here today. It's on our guests. Fleet touches every corner of the organization. Cary quite literally could not run without it. From public safety to sanitation to our most visible events, you make sure across the organization have what they need to serve our citizens well. Over the years, Brandon and his team have been pioneers, leading Cary into electric vehicles before many thought it was realistic, and doing so with pragmatism and vision. From putting the first Teslas into service for our police department to preparing for the arrival of our first fully electric fire truck, they've helped Cary live up to our value of evolution by pushing us forward while staying grounded in citizen expectations. None of those projects would have succeeded without the collective knowledge, care, and commitment of Brandon and his team. Just as importantly, Fleet is building the future of the profession. Through mentoring technicians and creating an intern program, they've shown that excellence isn't just about what we achieve today, but about investing in the people who will carry it forward tomorrow. So to Brandon and the entire Fleet team, congratulations. This award may carry one name, but it belongs to all of you. It's national in scope, but it feels personal here in Cary. You've made us better, and we're grateful. One other item I'd like to add, as the council is fully aware, in this last year's budget, we decided not to replace any vehicles. And as I've mentioned to Brandon and his team, we're going to be ever more reliant on their expertise because the equipment's going to get older and older. And the older the equipment, the better the technician. And we simply would not be able to forego those purchases if it wasn't for the talents of this team. So with a lesser team, we would be spending more money. So in a very real way, not only are they providing great services, but they're really helping us meet fiscal challenges. Brandon, would you like to say anything?
Sure. Thank you, Sean.
You bet.
So, good evening, Mayor, Council, and colleagues. I'm truly honored to be recognized here tonight in front of all of you. While my name is on the award, it truly belongs to the entire fleet team. Their hard work, dedication, and commitment to excellence are what make achievements like this possible. Cary's leadership and culture that fosters success also plays a huge part. This organization puts people first and encourages innovation and thinking, even when it challenges the norm. That support allows us to keep improving and set the standard for how we serve, keeping Cary at the top of the arc. I'm proud to represent Cary on a national level, and I'm grateful to be part of a team and an organization that always strives to be the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon, and the fleet team. I've had the privilege of going to 2 APWA conferences in my consulting job, and there are thousands and thousands of people that just attend, and to have a national award right here in Cary really means a lot, so thank you all very much. Okay, we now move to our third item on the agenda is Public Speaks Out. We've included instructions for speaking at this forum online and on the printed agenda. There were 3 opportunities to participate in Public Speaks Out: through written comments, by calling in, or by attending here in person tonight. And if you are here in person and would like to speak, I would ask you to take a seat in the rows to my right that are highlighted. Public Speaks Out speakers have 3 minutes each for their comments and may speak on any town-related topic as long as it's not a public hearing, and that's to your benefit. You get more time to speak at a public hearing. The 3-minute time limit will be enforced, not to be rude, but to be fair to all of our speakers. We have a timer on the podium. It'll start off with a green light. When it turns yellow, that means you have 30 seconds remaining. And when it flashes red, that's the point I'm going to interrupt you. Again, not trying to be mean, but trying to be fair to all of our speakers. And I ask that all of our speakers be respectful in their comments, direct their comments to the entire council and not to an individual. I thank everyone in the audience for understanding and respecting that this is a business meeting. Please do not applaud, make remarks from your seats, use props, or do anything else that may distract from the meeting. So now is the time for Public Speaks Out, and first I'll call on the town clerk to read any written comments, and then she will call on registered speakers.
We had one written comment. Mary Collins wrote in about the transparency and public access to town events. She advocated for video recording of all public information sessions and community meetings, not just town council meetings, pointed to low citizen attendance at the recent District C community meeting and suggested that recordings would allow residents to engage and review later, raised concerns about limited opportunities for citizen engagement, noting that YouTube comments are turned off, which prevent direct citizen feedback, and criticized the practice of requiring citizens to submit questions via 311 in advance, in opposed to an open forum. She urged the town to provide real-time interaction opportunities and find ways for the citizens to receive answers to their questions. We had 5 in-person speakers. 3 of the 5 also submitted their written comments that are in your packet. So our first registered speaker is Rosalind Elwood.
Do you move to your left? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rosalind Elwood. I have to read this because I don't want to run out of time. I've lived on Melody Lane, just north of the Cary town limits, for 45 years. Just north of Melody Lane is an roughly 8.3 acre tract of mature forest at least 75 years old. I'm speaking about the major consequences to our subdivision, which is on Well and Septic, with the Calic Senior Living rezoning on Reedy Creek Road, this 8.3 acre tract. I've spoken, let me back up. Our wells and septic fields are doomed if this rezoning allows Calic building plans to sprawl as their initial building plan shows. It appears to sprawl over up to 7 acres of this 8.3 acres with additional holding ponds for stormwater. I've spoken with Wake County water quality officials and the director, as well as geologists and well specialists, to learn that even if our wells survive the vibration, the excavation, the major grading on this steep piece of property, and construction, they are still doomed because the water table will drop significantly. There are fractures in this granite ridge that our property sits on that is being mined at the granite quarry next to Umstead. We feel the dynamite when they dynamite at the quarry. We can feel our houses shake. The fractures in this granite will spread with construction, diverting water away from our water table. The primary danger is that rainwater will be no longer able to percolate to our wells and will be diverted as major quantities of stormwater to Black Creek. The water diversion figures on the chart in front of you show 27,000 gallons of water run off just 1 acre of paved concrete with only 1 inch of rain. If their building is a 6-acre facility, it's 162,000 gallons with 1 inch of rain. If it's 7 acres, it's 189,000 gallons with 1 inch. None of this will percolate to our wells, they'll dry out. Not to mention the sediment pollution in the Black Creek. My own well was destroyed 5 years ago by the Reedy Creek expansion project, which was 350 feet away from my home. I was without water for 7 weeks. I spent $20,000 to drill a new well and replace all the plumbing inside and outside, including the fixtures, because everything was filled with mud and sand. It was devastating. I had nowhere to go with my dogs.
Ms. Elwood, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. Your time has expired. If you leave your comments with our clerk,
I'll type it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sharon Pullen. And then Felicia Moore.
Good evening, Council. Tonight I want to talk about transparency and technology. I am appreciative, as I know other citizens are as well, that the council meetings are streamed. But I'm here to ask the council to consider ways to be even more transparent and accessible. It is 2025, and the technology is available for council to stream, if not all, nearly all of its public meetings, the boards, the work sessions, quarterly meetings, retreats, etc. While I understand that I may not fully understand every aspect of the tech, I do know that the tech is available. You are streaming this meeting right now using it. Hello to the folks in the ether. As someone who is able to keep up with many government bodies because of the use of technology and streaming, I consider the use of this technology to be nothing but a benefit to constituents and an exercise in transparency for the council and all other governing bodies. For public meetings that happen during a workday, or let us not forget that many folks actually are working during a nightly meeting as well, for folks who might find it difficult to sit in these chairs for an entire meeting because of disability or for any other reason, streaming all meetings would give the town the opportunity to show it wants to be as accessible to its citizens as possible. I'm happy to have a conversation with anyone on council or staff over this topic to understand the reasons that all meetings aren't streamed, but I'm must preempt that I would likely find many reasons given to not stream to be an excuse, and then my question would be why this council doesn't have a goal to be as transparent as possible. If cost is a reason, I would like to understand those cost burdens and how excessive they may be. The room we sit in right now is outfitted with the tech to stream council meetings, and it streams the P&Z board. Why not other boards? If work sessions are held in another room, what would it take to outfit those rooms for streaming? What is the recurring cost to the town once the tech is set up? For meetings like the quarterly, which I believe at least in some years are streamed outside of this building or held outside of this building, what would it cost to stream those meetings, and what is the cost to hold those meetings outside of this building? Does the town get revenue from the ads I see on some of your YouTube videos? As you can see, I understand I do not fully understand the topic, but as a citizen who wishes to stay as engaged as possible and is surrounded by folks who feel the same, I'm asking council to consider seriously streaming all of its public meetings. I have my speech written in there, but was just yesterday informed that work sessions and retreat audio can be requested by citizens. While that is helpful and better than not having any audio, I am still going to urge this council to, if not video stream those meetings, to at least make the audio publicly available without request. For instance, the state senate does it this way. They only record audio in the chamber and it is accessible on their website. I think this is a very outdated approach though in 2025, and I still think video streaming makes the meetings the most accessible for the most citizens of all abilities. And I've downloaded y'all's audios before. Luckily, my computer survived the rage of that download. Please consider video streaming all of your public meetings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next in-person speaker is Dylan Santier. And then followed by Bridget Boja.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My family are here for the second time in reference to water flooding and drainage problems at our house, and ask if there are any new developments since the last time I appeared before you last month. As a Wake County tax-paying resident for many years, we would like our 3-year-old daughter to come over and play at our house. This is impossible living on concrete floors due to the recent rain flooding inside our house and the fear of black mold growth. Flooding has been an ongoing issue for years at our home. Over many requests and several months of communication with our HOA, we have had no help. I am now appealing to the town of Cary for help with this water drainage issue. We love the Cary culture and the transparency of these open meetings, the Cary parks, the free bus service, the greenways, and it is our home, and we wish to continue to age in place and not be forced to move. Tonight I am here for a plan of action. My request here tonight is simple. A simple fix. While I am not a landscaping engineer, maybe the actionable items would be just cleaning out the storm drains, a bobcat excavator to dig a trench and divert the rain waters gushing into our house, or whatever it takes to provide proper drainage. It just takes a simple rain to cause 3 inches of rainwater throughout our home. I am asking the town of Cary for relief with this pain and suffering, as this is an emergent issue for our family. Thank you.
Thank you.
No additional registered speakers.
If you're here in the audience and would like to speak at Public Speaks Out, now's your opportunity. Anyone to speak at Public Speaks Out? Seeing no one, I'll close Public Speaks Out. Mr. Stiegel, could you have somebody look into the flooding issue?
Oh, we have followed up with them.
Okay.
I would update, but I know we don't do that here,
Okay.
unless you want me to.
No, that's okay. And then the streaming public meetings, talk about deja vu. In 1997, I spoke for the first time in public in front of council, asking them to videotape meetings. And I'm like, wow, that was a long time ago. So Laurie, the Information Service Advisory Board, they've discussed this?
We have discussed it a number of times, but we can bring it up on the agenda and ask staff to present in order to get some additional information. Most of the board meetings are WebExed because we have a wide variety of people and abilities, and we want to be able to support them. What we need to do is understand the cost, the recording, all of the potential unintended consequences. But I think it's a great idea and something that takes us truly into an opportunity to be fully transparent. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, thank you. We now move to the fourth item on our agenda. It's called the consent agenda for the benefit of people watching our streaming meeting. I'll take a minute to review the consent agenda items. Please keep in mind that one vote approves all of these items. Excuse me. On the consent agenda, we have USA Baseball National Training Complex Coleman Field Renovation Bid Award. Consent for relocation of graves, Barbie Hobson Family Cemetery in Austin Yards. 25A07 Wesley Manor. Adoption of Wake County Emergency Operations Plan and Mutual Aid Agreement. 2025 opioid litigation settlements. Would council members like any of these items pulled for discussion, or is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now move to public hearings. Same rules apply for public hearings that apply for public speaks out, with one exception. Speakers now have 5 minutes instead of 3 for their comments. Our first public hearing is 24 REZ 14, Weston PDD Amendment, ONI Track 4, and we have Principal Planner Aaron Puckett will introduce this item, and council will not take action on this rezoning tonight. It will be referred to our Planning and Zoning Advisory Board, and the item will return to us in a few months for action. Ms. Puckett.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. This is a request to rezone approximately 8.7 acres at 7001 Weston Parkway. The site is located at the intersection of Weston Parkway and Norwell Boulevard. There are existing offices to the north, east, and west, and detached dwellings to the south, including the Bexley subdivision, which abuts the site. There is an existing office building and associated surface parking on the site, originally constructed in the late 90s. There are no overhead power lines along the site's frontage on either Weston Parkway or Norwell Boulevard. Cary's GIS indicates a possible stream buffer impacting the northwestern corner of the site, as well as a very small area along the southern boundary. Field determination of such features is required at time of development plan review. There is an existing greenway to the west of the site within Weston Property Owners Association common area. The Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources System Plan, approved last year and pending adoption by a future amendment to the Cary Community Plan, also indicates a street side trail along the Weston Parkway frontage. Weston Parkway and Norwell Boulevard are both 4-lane thoroughfares. There is also a sidewalk project under construction along the eastern portion of Norwell Boulevard between Bexley Bluff Lane and Weston Parkway to close the remaining 1,000-foot gap and connect to a nearby transit stop. This sidewalk is part of a transit project funded by Locally Administered Projects Program, or LAP funding, and the sidewalk is currently under construction. Go Cary Route 7 runs in both directions along Weston Parkway. There are bus stops in close proximity to the site, but not directly along the site frontage. The site is currently zoned PDD Major, and it has an existing office entitlement along with other office and institutional uses as part of Tract ONI 4 in the Weston PDD, originally approved by council in the 1980s. The southern portion of the subdistrict was rezoned for detached dwellings via a 2003 rezoning case. The applicant proposes an amendment to allow for multifamily units, townhouses, and commercial uses on this remaining portion of ONI 4, so the base zoning would remain PDD major. The proposed amended PDD master plan indicates 2 development pods on the site. Pod 1 is proposed to be developed with up to 275 multifamily dwellings and a minimum of 1,500 and maximum of 5,000 square feet of non-residential area integrated into those buildings. The non-residential square footage could consist of retail, personal service establishment, or restaurant uses, or could be neighborhood recreation for the development's residents. Buildings in this pod will be a maximum of 75 feet in height or 5 stories. Pod 2 may be developed with up to 22 townhouses or as parking for Pod 1. If developed with townhouses, they are limited to 50 feet in height and 3 stories. There are no minimums or phasing offered for this pod. The proposal also includes 50-foot Type A streetscapes along both site frontages. This is consistent with the LDO requirement for a residential project. A 15-foot Type C buffer is proposed along the west where adjacent to Weston Common area and for a short portion of the southern boundary adjacent to the widest portion of the adjoining neighborhood's open space. The remainder of the southern buffer will be 30 to 45 feet in width and planted to a denser Type A standard. An opaque fence, which may be wood, vinyl, or similar material, will be located within the entire southern buffer, and within the widest 45-foot portion, an additional 10 evergreen understory trees are offered for additional screening. A 75-foot building setback is also proposed in this southeastern portion of the site. The proposed development also includes 8-foot wide side paths along each site frontage. This is more than was required under the original Weston PDD, but is less than staff recommends given recently updated national guidance and the PRCR system plan, which proposes a street-side trail along Weston Parkway. The applicant has noted they will increase the facility width at time of development plan if Cary has adopted updated plans at that time, and only if increasing the commitment is allowed within the 50-foot streetscape. A private greenway will also be built internal to the site to connect to the western property line and allow for a potential future connection into the larger greenway network nearby. Additional development standards include a minimum of 5% of the multifamily units to be offered at a rent affordable at 80% of the area median income, or AMI, for a period of 20 years. A minimum of 3,000 square feet of community gathering space is proposed, which is more than double the LDO requirement. Gathering area will be amenitized, and a pick list of options is proposed. A minimum of 5% of the parking spaces in Pod 1 will include electric vehicle charging, with an additional 5% of spaces constructed with conduit for possible future EV charging. A minimum of 5% of the townhouses will also be pre-wired for EV charging, or approximately 1 to 2 garages if townhouses are provided. Masonry on multifamily building facades facing streets is increased from 35% to 40%, and facades of townhouse buildings facing Weston Parkway or Norwell Boulevard shall be 35% masonry. Based on the provided master plan, this appears to likely only impact one side of one townhouse building. A preliminary analysis against the Imagine Cary Community Plan finds the policies in the Live, Work, Move, Shape, and Enrich chapters apply. The proposal would provide multifamily units in an employment mixed-use campus. Residential units within this mixed-use area are predominantly multifamily, but smaller housing types are also encouraged in these areas. A commitment to townhouses would more strongly address this policy. The provision of residential uses on a redevelopment site can support infill and redevelopment policies of both the Live and Shape chapters. The proposal may modestly address the Live policy regarding the provision of affordable dwellings, as the applicant commits to a minimum of 5% of the units at 80% AMI for a period of 20 years. This is, however, a shorter time frame than typical. A smaller housing type can also support the associated work policy regarding the housing needs of Cary's workforce. And regarding the applicable move policies, the provision of an 8-foot wide side path can partially meet some policies, but a clearer commitment to a wider facility would even better meet the goals of this chapter. The shape policy regarding mixing uses may be met within the overall campus, but would be better met by a commitment to a mix of uses and housing types on this site. As written, the site could be developed solely as surface parked multifamily and associated neighborhood recreation uses for the residents. The site offers vegetated buffers, which can help with transitions to detached dwellings to the south. A commitment to townhouses as a transition use could even better meet this policy. As written, the townhouse pod could alternatively be developed as surface parking for Pod 1. The vegetated buffers and streetscapes, along with amenitized gathering space, can speak to the aesthetics of the development, while a stronger commitment to buildings rather than parking fronting the two thoroughfares would even better support this policy. Commitments to some EV charging infrastructure and meeting or exceeding LDO buffers and streetscapes helps address enriched chapter policies. An employment mixed-use campus recommends a mix of commercial, office, and residential uses in a walkable pattern with buildings fronting streets. Building heights of 3 to 7 stories are supported. The proposed rezoning would be primarily residential in nature, and while multifamily dwellings are a supported use in these areas, stronger commitments to commercial and townhouse uses would more clearly meet this guidance, as could a more straightforward commitment to the 12-foot multimodal frontage improvement that staff anticipates could be needed in the future. I want to also acknowledge the Weston study, a transportation and land use study for this area, which builds upon this existing employment mixed-use campus guidance. As directed by Council in December 2021, staff worked with a consultant to prepare a multimodal study for Weston. That study expanded to also begin exploring potential land use considerations. Staff presented a high-level overview of the study at your retreat earlier this year. The preliminary results of that study suggest a special planning area would be beneficial for Weston, and staff are working on a proposal for council consideration next year. This site represents one of the first redevelopment opportunities in Weston. While we anticipate more specific guidance could be provided by a special planning area in the future, the existing direction from the employment mixed-use campus designation does still provide valuable guidance for the site. A neighborhood meeting was held in November of 2024, and 36 members of the public attended. Attendees voiced concerns regarding the use and density, as well as traffic impacts. They also had questions about buffers, greenway connections, the proposed commercial uses, and general questions about the rezoning process. Since the neighborhood meeting, staff received many calls, emails, and 311 inquiries, most of which voiced similar concerns as those noted above, particularly with the site density and potential traffic. The applicant also made staff aware that they held a follow-up neighborhood meeting with some of those concerned citizens. Staff mailed notice of the public hearing to property owners within 800 feet of the site. This exceeds the state's and Cary's LDO requirements, and signs were also posted on the site. This concludes my presentation. Jamie Schwadler, the applicant's representative, is here to provide comments, and following the public hearing, I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Ms. Puckett.
I don't have a card. You need clicker. Just do it.
Good evening, Mayor Rhinebeck and members of council. I'm Jamie Schwadler with Parker Poe at 301 Fayetteville Street here on behalf of the applicant Highwoods Properties. I'm joined tonight by Skip Hill with Highwoods, as well as representatives from Withers Ravenel and from Kimley Horn, available to answer questions both about our layout and traffic that may come up tonight. We appreciate the input of staff and the neighbors who have actively participated in this case over the past year, which allows us to transform a 27-year-old vacant office building on a key corridor in Cary into a new life infused with residential and commercial uses, while incorporating those community suggestions as to transitions into use and buffers. To set the stage for this specific request, it's important to note Aaron's comments on the Weston study. That was directed back in 2021, where the council asked staff to look into what the future of this area could be. And at the same time, Highwoods, a vested partner in the Weston Parkway area with many buildings along that corridor, commissioned its own study. And so the designers kind of set out to what this future could hold for the entire area. And there were a lot of commonalities and synergies between the plans, namely focusing on the future of Lake Crabtree and how that frontage on the lake could be used to really invigorate the area and take advantage of a beautiful amenity that today is really only enjoyed by the office workers. There's no real retail or residential activating that space throughout. In the meantime, since that study, we've had the RDU Authority invest in the health and wellness recreation across the lake. We've had Lenovo Center developed. We have the active retail and the wonderful hotel use of the Umstead Spa. So we have activations on either end of the corridor, but the designers saw that the lakefront was really the next frontier. And that sets up this property really well to be a nice transition between what that lakefront can become, which is an active mix of uses, additional kind of higher density and higher heights, transition down to the south in the existing residential area, namely the Bexley neighborhood, which is our only kind of shared border with the neighborhood in that established area. And so taking this site individually, we're on the corner of Norwell and Weston Parkway, and we have what is essentially a 1990s office building that is now completely vacant. Our last tenant left in March of this year, and faced with that vacancy, Highwoods was compelled to pursue the zoning case that's before you today. Now, they filed that case in anticipation of the vacancy and originally had several different combinations, 300 multifamily options or 300 multifamily unit options, or a 77 townhome units. And the response we heard from the neighbors was, we really want more certainty. We want you to focus on one development option. And so that's what's before you tonight, 275 multifamily units and up to 22 townhome units with a minimum commitment of the 1,500 square feet of commercial up to a maximum of 5,000 square feet of commercial. So we did a couple things in this past year in response to those neighbors' requests, many of whom are here with us tonight and have expressed their concerns to you, but we're trying to respond to those, and we're committed to continue to respond to those as we go throughout the case. What we did in responding to those requests is reduce the density by 25 multifamily units, but by doing so, we maintained 275 units because this is where your future growth framework map designation expects to have multifamily use. So we're putting multifamily in the right place with the right transitions. The reason it's in the right place is that this employment mixed-use campus expects the Western Corridor to be buffeted with these residential uses and some high-density pockets within the existing areas. Many of the areas to the south are already developed with single-family, and so this meets your LIVE chapter policies of providing not only infill residential development, but a mix of new type of housing that isn't present there today. And while there are other multifamily developments along Weston Parkway, they're in different pockets that aren't in close proximity and don't serve that same transition from the lake down to the single-family units that I mentioned earlier. In addition to giving up those 25 units, we've also made that commitment to the minimum of 1,500 square feet of commercial with a maximum of 5,000 square feet of commercial in response to community requests to not oversize the retail, to make sure that we were kind of staying in line with that transition and making it appropriate. Also consistent with your future growth framework map designation of expecting a mix of uses here with that committed minimum of 1,500 square feet. To ensure the appropriate transition to the south with our neighbors in the Bexley neighborhood, we increased the buffer on the southern portion of the site. We added that 75-foot setback that Aaron mentioned and illustrated here on your screen. We committed to that increased type A perimeter buffer in the area where the HOA parcel kind of narrows out towards the east, adjacent to Justin and Chad's homes, to make sure that they have an equitable transition and buffer as their neighbors to the west. We're also exploring adding more evergreens. We've heard the desire for more evergreen buffers in that area. We worked with staff on trying to add something, but need a little more time as this case goes forwards to P&Z to make sure that that evergreen buffer will survive. There's a significant amount of canopy within that HOA buffer that exists already, and we need to make sure that when we put the evergreens in there, they'll have enough sunlight to survive. And we've communicated that to neighbors and are committed to working on that as we go forward. In addition to those to those buffer transitions, we also have the form-based transition of the townhome use itself, which is kind of a buffer between the multifamily, which is further up to the north, where the existing office building is. And not only was this all done at the neighbor's request or with the neighbor's input and trying to respond to those concerns, it also meets your LIVE policies 6, which encourages transitions between the different types and uses of intensities of the site. So not only are we using that transition from the lake where the mixed use and intensity will be with the office down to the single family, but providing a site-specific transition and form and visual appeal for our neighbors directly to the south. In addition to all of that, we've made commitments to enhance the community experience. We've heard a lot about traffic. The traffic report shows that we're adding only 13 p.m. trips and 13 a.m. trips and 6 p.m. trips because basically the office use that's there today and what we replace it with is a wash. Still, we're committing to all of the recommended improvements in the TAR and making sure those are commitments of the case. We're providing the 8-foot multifamily path where that doesn't have a requirement today and providing flexibility to respond to council should you wish to adopt a plan that has a more robust path. We're limiting surface parking between Weston Parkway and the buildings and also making commitments to architectural commitments that you've come accustomed to for high-quality design and growth here in Cary. And we're building an on-site greenway connection to connect to that existing greenway to our west. In addition to all that, we're providing the affordable commitment and the parking to the EV chargers that Aaron mentioned, all in an effort to bring not only responses to what you see in your future growth framework designation, but what the neighbors have asked us to consider and what's really right for the next step in evolution for this key corridor that's been traditionally known as an office corridor, but needs to take that next step and become a truly mixed-use area. And this is one of the ways that we can begin that step as you explore a potential special use planning area. So we look forward to your questions and your feedback tonight, and we'll remain available to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. So now is the time for the public hearing for our 24 REZ 14 Weston PDD amendment. And first, I'll call on the clerk to read any written comments and call on any registered speakers.
We had 32 written comments. Residents from Bexley at Weston, Weston Point, and nearby neighborhoods submitted written comments opposing rezoning case 24 REZ 14, which would allow, they expressed concerns that the proposed density is out of character with the surrounding single-family neighborhoods and would lean to increase traffic on Weston Parkway and nearby cut-through streets, as well as overflow impacts to North Cary Park, parking, and local schools. Many noted the potential loss of privacy from multi-story buildings overlooking homes, noise, and trees lost during construction, and possible declines in property values. Several requested stronger buffers, evergreen screening, and height limits, and encouraged the town to consider lower density options such as single-family homes or townhomes, or to retain the property for commercial use. Others questioned the need for additional apartments given the nearby vacancies and stated the ownership housing would be better support long-term community stability. Our first registered speaker is Justin Brewer.
Good evening. My name is Justin Brewer, and I've resided in Cary at 110 Juliet Circle in the Bexley community since 2008. My home is directly adjacent to the property contained in the zoning application. I am speaking on behalf of the residents of Bexley and the Western Manor communities. We feel it is important that the Town Council understand a brief history of our communities. The Bexley and Western Manor communities were created in 2003 and 2004 when Highwoods Properties sold land to single-family home developers. As part of the conditions of the original sale by Highwoods, the residents of Bexley and Weston Manor are part of a master HOA agreement, which is owned and managed by Highwood Properties. Every year, the homeowners of our communities pay a significant portion of our annual HOA dues to this master HOA. We do so in good faith, believing that the master HOA exists to represent the collective interests of the communities that make up the Weston Parkway corridor. But there is a fundamental problem with that relationship. Highwoods is both the owner and manager of the master HOA, tasked with maintaining the character of our community, and the developer seeking to rezone and sell this property in ways that directly harm its member communities. This is a fundamental and material conflict of interest. I am a CPA, and I spent a large portion of my career auditing companies. One of the requirements in any audit is to identify, report, and disclose these conflicts of interest to third-party users. Why is this blatant financial conflict of interest not a concern to the Cary Town Council? It probably should be. The residents of Bexley and Weston Manor do not want this property developed for multifamily uses. Unfortunately, the very entity, Highwoods Properties, we fund through our annual homeowners dues, is now working against the privacy, stability, and collective wishes of the residents it is supposed to support in the master HOA. This is a conflict of interest. The same entity entrusted with stewardship of our community is now asking the Cary Town Council to approve a rezoning application that strips us of privacy, introduces traffic density and safety concerns, and destabilizes our home values. This is a conflict of interest. We are paying into a master HOA we cannot influence, and the very people selling the land are the ones who should be protecting our collective interests. It is not fair or equitable for families who have invested in a mixed-use community of commercial properties and single-family homes to have the dynamics of our community materially altered. This is also a conflict of interest. The zoning application process has three primary stakeholders. Highwoods Properties benefits by selling an underperforming asset to maximize profit. The town of Cary benefits by increasing population density and presumably increasing the associated tax base. The question that is not resolved is how is this in the best interest of your communities and taxpayers that are overwhelmingly opposed to this rezoning application? How does Highwood's sale of this property benefit the communities that fund its master HOA association? It does not. From the moment the initial notice was received from the town of Cary for the rezoning application, the only constant universal reaction from all the residents has been the same. We do not want a massive multifamily project on this property. At the urging of the town of Cary, we have had multiple meetings with Highwoods Properties to discuss our concerns, especially the concerns related to the Bexley properties directly facing the property in the zoning application. As of the date of this meeting tonight, these concerns have not been completely satisfied, and the latest revision of the Weston Parkway PDD, dated September 3rd, 2025, has not addressed these issues. Then again, because of the obvious conflict of interest mentioned previously, we should not have been put into a situation where we are negotiating accommodation for an outcome that is ultimately undesirable for the Bexley and Weston Estate communities. Cary is known for thoughtful and careful planning, but approving this rezoning would ignore the glaring conflict of interest between Highwood's financial motives and the wishes of your residents to avoid all the significant adverse impacts of a massive multifamily project that does not fit into the community structure that we all currently enjoy. Therefore, we urge the town of Cary to deny this application as submitted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next registered speaker is Robert Kratz.
Well, good evening. My name's Robert Kratz. I live at 116 Juliet Circle in Bexley. I'm a retired emergency room doctor, and my family and I have lived at this address for the last 20 years. My home is adjacent to the property the developer wants to rezone. I want to discuss three issues: compatibility, privacy, and visual buffers. Today, the office park behind my home is a very good neighbor. It operates from roughly 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays, and at nights, it's quiet, dark, and private. I understand that it's empty now, but I've also heard, without proof, that that's because no further leases were given or made available. That's why many of us thought we were buying that's what many of us thought we were buying when we invested in our homes. What's proposed now could not be more different. Hundreds of apartments means having activity in our backyards 24/7, with 5 stories of balconies looming over our backyards. Parking lot lights will be shining into our bedrooms, and community gathering spaces and dog parks will be right against our fences. These aren't speculative fears. They are design realities of multifamily housing. Privacy is not a luxury. It's a fundamental element of property value. A peer-reviewed study from Clemson University titled Urban Forestry and Urban Greening, published in 2010, showed that homes with tree buffers enjoyed resale premiums of up to 15%. Dense evergreen plantings, particularly in low, mid, and upper-level canopy layers, provide year-round privacy and directly sustain property values. Right now, the few trees separating our homes from the proposed site are deciduous. That means they shed their leaves in winter, offering zero protection when it's most needed. Without mandated enforceable evergreen buffers, our neighborhoods will be permanently exposed. This isn't theoretical. Research from the University of Washington, published in 2016, showed that urban greenery and evergreen buffers consistently correlate with stronger home prices and faster resale. Buyers consistently pay more for homes that feel private, quiet, and protected. On the flip side, where buffers are thin, values decline. That's exactly what we risk here. A rezoning without codified evergreen screening is effectively a rezoning that transfers wealth from homeowners who lose privacy to developers who gain density. This rezoning has a material adverse impact to us as homeowners. So I ask you, in closing, Council, you have the responsibility to require compatibility. Please use it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Daniela Zipkin.
Is this on? Okay. It's an honor to speak with you, the council, and the mayor tonight. I'm really happy to be able to represent my neighborhood. My name is Daniela Zipkin. I live at 107 Linton Banks in the Weston Manor property, which was just across the street from the proposed area. When this process began, we were told to expect 300 multifamily apartments or 70 townhomes. We had the initial meetings. We've been engaged in this process from day one. We voiced our opposition to multifamily. After that, you see that this was reduced by a total of 3 units. It's now 275 multifamily plus 22 townhomes. We're now at 297 units. That is not representing a response to our concerns. This is not inevitable. This does not have to be a massively dense area full of multifamily apartments. It could be a lot of other things. It could be townhomes, as we've mentioned, and other types of commercial properties that I'm not educated enough in this area to talk about. It's not inevitable. I have a couple of points I'd like to add around density. This is not a mixed-use employment campus. This is something I also shared with all of you in the form of email, so I won't expand completely right now. But a large, walkable, interactive area does not fit on this 8.7 acres. There is nowhere to go from that corner of Norwell and Weston. You can walk to North Cary Park, which is lovely, but that's it. There's nothing commercial. The commercial areas are a drive away. This is not just a routine redevelopment plan. I really want to impress upon you all that this would be unprecedented for this area, unprecedented for this part of Cary. This would be the most dense development in the area by far. We calculated with nearby developments that are quite similar all across our area in this section of Cary. And when we look at density as units per acre, this would be 297 units on the 8.7 acres. That's 34. Just keep that number in mind for a moment. The average of all of the other developments in our area is 13 units per acre. The next one, the closest next one, is Land Tower down the road at the corner of Weston and Evans at 27. That's 308 units on 11 acres. You might say comparable, although it's a larger spit of land. There's no single-family neighborhoods next to that. It's on its own. It's lovely. I love it. It's beautiful. I actually love a lot of the development that's happening in Cary. I'm delighted to live here. I should have told you. I've been here since 2007. My husband and daughters, we were the original owners of our home. I'm not against development, but I'm against the way this development is rolling out. I want to impress upon you that this is not suitable use of the site, as the phrasing is used in the application and in the reports. It is actually an outrageous level of density for the space. Approving this development would be a major departure from how Cary has carefully planned other areas. I humbly request that you object to this plan as it currently stands and let us review something different. I would also love to thank my neighbors and invite them to stand silently to be acknowledged across all of the neighborhoods. Thank you.
Our next registered speaker is Rob Herman.
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council members. My name is Robert Herman, and I am a 26-year resident of Weston Point Community. I'm an executive at Lenovo Corporation and an 8-year member of the Regional Transportation Alliance, which is an arm of the Raleigh Chamber of Commerce. When my wife, Doreen, and I moved here in 1999 with our 2 young children, North Cary Park wasn't even opened. Since its opening, our family has enjoyed the benefits of this park as many other Cary residents have. In fact, the Town of Cary website now recognizes this park as one of the most popular in town. I use the Black Creek Trail to access Lake Crabtree and Umstead on my bike. My wife Doreen uses the trail to walk 6 miles almost every day. So often that she's on a first-name basis with Doug and Sonny before him, who are part of the Cary Park maintenance crew. Over the years, we've witnessed the growing popularity cause significant growth in car, pedestrian, and bike traffic. We see this on numerous weekends, including last weekend when a long line of cars were parked along Norwell, making through traffic more challenging. Now let's turn to Norwell Boulevard itself. It is a winding, hilly road that invites some drivers to go faster than the speed limit. And for most drivers, it is a connector between Weston Parkway and Cary Parkway. This combination makes for unsafe situations which both my wife and I have experienced as a pedestrian and a biker on Norwell. So as a resident, I'm concerned about the increase in density that will increase traffic and the potential for safety issues. Related to this concern, I'm confident that many of the attendees here have lived in an apartment complex at some point in their life. And I'm certain many of those here have not felt a part of the larger community outside of the apartment complex they're living in. I, for one, had little awareness or regard for the community outside the apartment complexes I lived in. The impermanent nature of living in an apartment typically does not translate into immersing yourself into the larger community around you. I'm concerned that this proposed high-density apartment complex and the impermanent nature of its occupants, in combination with the hilly and connective characteristics of Norwell, will exacerbate the unsafe traffic potential we have today at all crosswalks on Norwell and at North Cary Park. And this density will put more pressure on weekend traffic as well as public spaces. I ask that the Town Council reject Highwood's proposal for this apartment complex and consider a low-density housing development that is more compatible with the surrounding residential area of Norwell Boulevard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Chad Bowers.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Chad Bowers, and I live at 112 Juliet Circle in Bexley. My home backs directly to the site that we're talking about tonight. I've lived in Cary for 25 years and been a licensed realtor here for more than a decade. I've had buyers ask me repeatedly for privacy, wooded backyards, golf course lots, waterfront views. Been asked for all kinds of things that they want in their backyard, but never, ever have I had a buyer ever say to me, "We'd love to buy a home with an apartment complex behind it." It's simply not a desired condition for buyers. And what's not desired directly impacts a property's value. It's not speculation. Take the Wessex community just down the road. In 2019, a home at 209 Sedgemore sat on the market for nearly 3 times longer than the average of its peers and sold at a very steep discount to those peers that year, all because a hotel was zoned in the parcel behind it. If I apply that same discount to my house, that's nearly $40,000 worth of equity wiped out before the first shovel hits the ground. Now, multiply that times the 8 homeowners that all back up to this parcel, many more than what happened in Wessex. And in our tiny neighborhood of 64 homes, that's almost 15% of the home inventory in our neighborhood. Our lower comps will pull down the value for others. We can't absorb that, nor should we be expected to. Apartments bring constant intrusion. Balconies overlooking our yards, dog parks, pools, commercial spaces, hundreds of vehicles and residents, all hours of the day, dramatically different than the commercial Class A office space we've all enjoyed for 18 to 20 years. Now, council has said that the developer has the right to develop their land, but rights are not unlimited. Property rights end where they begin to hurt someone else. And that is why zoning exists, not to guarantee a developer's profit, but to ensure compatibility, balance, and protection for existing homeowners. And here, compatibility and very significant adverse impacts are what's at issue. Highwoods has options that would benefit them and the town. They could redevelop for Class A office, medical facilities, or even townhomes, as has been discussed. If housing is the goal and multifamily is the goal, they own an 11-acre parcel right next to Land Tower. They could build an apartment complex there. Forcing dense apartments on this site does not serve our community. It only serves a single interest at the expense of our neighborhood. And yes, through our discussions, they've made some adjustments. But in nearly a year now, a 1% density reduction and a 6-foot fence simply are not going to be enough to curtail the impact of a 75-foot, 5-story high structure with 1,000 new residents. Highwoods made the choice not to reinvest in that building, and that's unfortunate for us. We should not be the ones that are forced to pay the price. They have other reasonable options. We have none. If you approve this, there will be very significant adverse impacts on properties in the vicinity. Because of that, it is not compatible. We object to this rezoning, and I urge you to deny it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last registered speaker is Ted Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members, for allowing us to speak today. And I don't want to take anything away from what the 5 people before me have just spoken. I think that they really do represent the views of our community. I am a homeowner. I've been at the 122 Juliet Circle. I've been there for 20 years. I also back up to the Weston property. I'm on the far side, or the left side, if you can see your map. On our side, there's no guarantees that we would not have a 4 or 5-story apartment building built right up against us. 6 months out of the year, we do not have coverage in that area. I can tell a story, and I've told it to others. One night, a couple years ago, there was green flashing lights flying into our window, and we're like, what's that? So we looked out our kitchen, out the kitchen window, and sure enough, we saw the security guy in his vehicle. He was eating his dinner. And day after day after day, that security guy was there. Now, if we picture a 5-story apartment building facing right up against you. People looking out their windows, people looking at, sitting on their balconies, looking out, looking into my kitchen, looking into my bedrooms. That's really is a high concern. We have no guarantee that that would not happen. We also don't have any full guarantee yet that we would have type A evergreens on that side to help block that view. And so for this reason, it's very concerning for myself and the residents who are on that kind of that left side of the map. And as mentioned earlier, we pay into that Masters Association fee. We pay, I don't want to say the number here, but I can say that they've raised it this year by 14%. And I think the concern is what benefit are we getting from that association? Because we feel like our concerns are not being taken into account. Our privacy, the potential loss of our property value, and so forth. So anyways, that's where I'll kind of leave it. Also, I did want to say that the North Cary Park, if you go there on the weekend, that parking lot is full, cars are parked on the street. We have 300 units, or close to 297, or that number. That's just going to be way too many people in that area and along that Weston Parkway, or along the Norwell Boulevard. Thank you so much, and appreciate your time.
Thank you.
No additional registered speakers.
If you're in the audience and would like to speak at this public hearing, now's your opportunity. Anyone else to speak at this public hearing? Please come down. Thank you.
My name is Dr. Sivaraj. I'm an emergency room physician currently working. I moved to Cary in 1999, and briefly we left Cary for various reasons and came back again. And we moved last year, this neighborhood, because we moved back to Cary because we loved Cary. My children studied here and graduated from here. The reason we chose this house because it's a very quiet neighborhood and very nice park nearby. We can take our dog and walk to the park without any hassles. And I strongly dislike the idea of having an apartment building next to our neighborhood. Many reasons, as many other speakers has mentioned before, that a 7-story building will be looking down at our homes. One, more traffic. Already the Cary Park that we go, the next neighborhood park, is saturated with lots of car parked during the weekends, and you're going to add on to it, and our peacefulness, taking the dog and walking along the wooded area of the park is going to be disturbed. For many of these reasons, I strongly dislike the idea of putting an apartment building in that neighborhood. Normal houses, yes, but apartment building and commercial activity, I strongly dislike and oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak at this public hearing? Anyone else? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll invite Ms. Puckett up. I have a question for you. The special planning area, remind me again when we will see that?
We hope to bring it to you sometime next year for your consideration.
And this process we're in will take a few months, so will it outpace the special planning area? Will it catch up? Because it seems like we really would need that if we're talking about matching a plan with a proposal.
Sure, and the analysis you heard tonight is still coming from the current guidance we have of the Imagine Cary Community Plan. The special planning area, while we don't have a final timeline for that yet, So that would really be up to council. I do think the employment mixed-use campus gives us good guidance to build off of. So we could have more specific guidance in that special planning area coming forward. We do have valuable guidance today in our future growth framework and the other policies of the plan. But that would ultimately be up to council whether there was comfort in the timelines, I suppose.
I guess what I'm afraid of is the Cary community plan would allow for something, and then the special planning area would say, well, we would want something else there, and then they're in conflict. That's what I don't want to happen.
Sure. And if I can add just a little bit of additional context, and the applicant's representative sort of got to this point as well. The study that we have to date focused a lot on these catalyst sites and sort of the large swath adjacent to the lake, with that being sort of probably where the most intense development would go. And then as you go further south, more of a transitional area. So again, we don't know what the specifics of that special planning area would look like today. We do know at a very high level, sort of a transition within this employment mixed-use campus that it would likely be looking for based on the results of that study. I don't know if that helps, but that's where we are today.
Still would like more information, but it
I
helps a little.
understand.
Heard a lot about privacy and height tonight. Doesn't look like there's a big topography difference. And you probably know what I'm going to request next is a balloon. And if I could see what that looks like, that would really help me understand what the neighbors will be looking at. If it's towering over the trees, looking down on them, or it's like at tree line, and then that still doesn't take care of the deciduous trees, but it would help me understand the height and the privacy from that. I did hear a comment that the town benefits with tax base. While technically that is true, we have never, in my 22-plus years on council, have made a decision based on tax base. We evaluate each proposal as they come in based on its merits and how it fits a plan or not. And speaking of the plan, before I get there, there's also a request, why don't we make it low density? Well, we can't make anything. And just so you understand, it is currently zoned for commercial. And if we rezoned it down to a low density, that would be a down zoning, and we can't do that. But anybody can rezone any property, but down zoning something is not something you can do. So it would be at its intensity now or higher. You cannot go lower. Having said that, the Cary community plan I'm going to come back to after all of my colleagues have a chance to speak to this and ask questions, and then I'll wrap it up. So who would like to go next?
I have a couple. Michelle's district. So.
Yes.
Oh, you got pages over there.
Well, it would be easier to read if I had pages, but I wrote it all in one. So I do have lots of questions, but first I wanted to just say that I really appreciate the engagement of the neighbors, and I want to apologize that I have not answered all of your emails. There were a lot of emails, and I do usually try to answer all of them. I will still follow up with you after this, but I also wanted to thank the applicant, because from looking at some of, the original, I can tell that they have been listening to the neighbors, and I know it's not to the place where the neighbors want it to be, but I do see that we're moving, and that's, I know when we've met, some of us have met with some of the residents, and we've said, this was like, I don't know, a month or more ago, we said, it's so early in the process, please be engaged, and we do expect it to look different. It almost always looks different after the public hearing. And so just to reiterate some of the things that I've been in the conversations and in the emails, I do have questions about the buffer. And I know we walked the property, and I don't know why this question didn't come up for me to ask before tonight, but in my mind, the evergreens were going to be planted all along Juliet, on the parallel to Juliet. and I believe it stops in that sharp point. And so that would be something that I would want us to talk more about and maybe learn from the applicant, the reasoning of that particular stop point.
I can help speak
Okay.
to that, because in some ways, this is coming from staff guidance.
Okay.
Where we have a type A buffer that is 30 or less feet in width, it becomes very difficult to sort of overplant that buffer. As you know, our type A is already our densest standard. So as the applicant's representative alluded to, our fear was sort of overplanting the evergreen understories in those narrower areas could result in outcomes that are not favorable in terms of long-term tree health. That being said, looking at a greater width there, where we could potentially fit more. That being said, the type A standard does already have a significant number of evergreen understories required. So anything in excess would be built upon that. With more width, we could better support excess plantings. It becomes very difficult in less than 30 feet of width. With the addition of the opaque fence as well, that eats up some of our plantable area in those buffers. So those are some of the staff concerns. It's not that I don't think the applicant was open to the neighbors' ask for that. We also need to be evaluating it in the context of what we know about buffer outcomes when we try to cram too much in.
And I think we heard the representative
Yeah.
allude to the fact that we need more time to look into that. And can you remind us where the fence, the opaque fence is, I think what I read?
That would be along the entire southern buffer.
Okay.
So to your point, the evergreen plantings are just in that widest 45-foot wide portion, but the fence is proposed for the whole southern buffer.
And I believe, I'm not sure if I heard her say it or if I read it or when it happened, but 50-foot max in pod 2, I believe.
Height, yes.
Height. And how many stories?
It
Approximately.
is 3 stories and 50 feet in height.
Okay. And in the staff report, it talks about policy 3 not fully being met. I know we don't expect every policy to fully be met. We would never build anything if we expected everything with that much precision. But it says a larger square footage commitment would better be in line, something greater than 1,500 square feet commercial or the neighborhood recreation area. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so it's almost in evaluation of that policy, it's almost a two-parter. We understand the concerns from the neighbors and trying to get to what that right range of commercial is. I think from staff's perspective, we would also see more valuable in a true mix of uses, so really making a commitment if you're going to go as low as 1,500 to retail or restaurant. It could also just be neighborhood recreation for the multifamily, which isn't, it's not as clearly meeting the intent of that mixing of uses. So it's a little bit of both. But yes, staff did encourage incorporating some commercial space in that pod.
Definitely very interested in learning more about the Weston study. As the mayor mentioned, I think one of our speakers mentioned that this is not a true mixed-use employment area. I'm not sure the exact wordage that you used, but I do believe if that is where we're intending to go, that we have to start somewhere. So we want to make sure we have as much information as possible to inform decisions. I've written on really a lot of things on this paper. One of the speakers tonight, and maybe I think two alluded to it, and some of the emails that I had responded to were about concerns about how many, the people in North Cary Park, and I did look it up, it's like a mile away, pretty much exactly a mile away. And there were concerns about parking in the bike lanes and things like that. That was something that I have not driven out there. I assume they probably mean on a weekend. That's something that I would like to see, concerns that are already out there, but maybe that's something that staff could follow up with also. And then the 8-inch wide path, I know staff in multiple places in the report had mentioned that 12-foot would be preferable.
Yes, and that's coming from, there's been recently updated AASHTO guidance on bike and pedestrian facilities. So that's really where that is coming from. Also knowing that the Weston study is coming, which was really a multimodal study first and foremost, and that we will be anticipating greater multimodal needs in this area in the future, that we would encourage a wider facility here than the 8-foot that's offered. The 8-foot technically exceeds what would be required today because the original Weston plan didn't even really contemplate sidewalks. It had a grand vision of everything was going to be connected by internal greenways. So it is more than we have today. It is less than staff would recommend based on current guidance.
I think I've said enough. After I go home and decipher my notes, I will send them to the appropriate people.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions, but
I have questions too. It doesn't matter. You can go first.
okay. Just to clear the air, what is allowed today on that property?
Yes.
By right.
So it is an office and institutional subdistrict. It can develop as office, retail, personal service establishment, restaurant, club or lodge, religious assembly, school, college, library, museum, clinic, daycare, life care community, nursing home, funeral home, animal hospital, post office, public utility, public safety station, utility substation, telecommunications tower.
That was great in one breath. All right. Not residential.
Not residential.
Gotcha. So, for instance, if the developer wanted to tear down the building and put an IHOP.
They could, yes.
They could, okay. And there seems to be an item with respect to townhomes. And it's, tell me if I'm understanding this correctly, the 22 townhomes or a parking lot?
Correct.
So it is, I'm channeling the mayor's worst-case scenario that he always does. The worst-case scenario is that that amount or that amount could be just a parking lot.
That is
Right.
correct, yes. There's no minimum for the townhomes.
And there's no phasing identified, so I'm not saying it would be approved, but again, worst-case scenario, a 7-story multifamily could be up, and there'd be absolutely no transition between the single-family, because you could have a parking lot and then the multifamily.
Right.
Okay. I just want to make sure that my worst-case scenarios in my mind are realized.
7-story or 5-story?
Oh, sorry, 75 feet, 5 stories.
75 feet,
Okay.
5-story, yes.
That's how I was like.
Sorry, 75 feet, 5 stories. And by the way, when it has a slash like that, does that mean it absolutely is?
It would have to meet both. So it couldn't be,
More than-
it couldn't be 75 feet and
6 stories.
6 stories. Thank you.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure I hadn't seen it exactly in that way before. I had seen a maximum of 75 feet, that is 5 stories. But this way, it's got to meet both?
It has to meet both. Yes, it couldn't exceed one, even if it still meets the other. That's right.
Okay, hadn't seen it like that. And this 1,500 to 5,000 square foot of commercial use, it is not a requirement. It could be just gathering space?
The minimum of 1,500 square feet is required, but one of the options for that minimum of 1,500 square feet is neighborhood recreation.
What is the definition of neighborhood recreation?
I don't have the
Fire pit?
verbatim in front of me, but included in the definition, so it's different from like commercial recreation. That's a completely different use. That's your gyms, your yoga studios, those types of uses. Neighborhood recreation is typically a recreational facility for the residents of that development. And that's the terminology the LDO uses, is for those residents.
Right, is that
Could it be
mean?
indoor or outdoor?
Well, the way that this is written, because it's got a square footage on it, it has to be integrated into the building, our assumption is that would be internal to the building. So it could be a restaurant or a retail store, or it could be a gym for
It could be like
the
a
residents.
weight room like they did at the Bradford.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
So it's really not, I think as Councilmember Craig was saying, this mix of use, because that's only of use to the residents within that building.
It could be, right.
Right, so you could basically not have any commercial,
Yes.
basically. Okay. Those were all my questions, but, one last one. In the picture, there is you have the green buffer you have Pod 2, then you have the deep green buffer, and then you have this gray area. Is that land owned by the residents, or what is that? Is that a buffer already identified in another document?
Yes, you're talking about sort of the grayed out area, yes. So that is the open space for the Bexley subdivision to the south. I believe there's a fairly significant stream feature in there, which is why it sort of widens and narrows in places. It looks like at the narrowest width, it's a 50-foot buffer of some kind. At widest, it looks like it's around 150 or so feet.
Okay,
And that's owned by the HOA?
The Bexley HOA, yes.
The Bexley HOA.
I'll double check, but I'm fairly certain that's correct.
There's no BMP or stormwater identified additional amenity in this current rezoning?
The specific location isn't identified, and that's fairly normal for a PDD. With a PDP, we usually see them. This is less detailed, so that would be determined at time of development plan review.
Okay. And I'm guessing that the line through there, the access, that is to be determined at some later time as well.
It would be approximate. It does need to be a street connection of some kind since it's connecting to two major thoroughfares.
Okay, I have lots of thoughts, but those are all my questions in case people have more questions.
I have questions. I have thoughts too. Can we go ahead and share your thoughts?
Okay. Oh, okay.
Just go.
Just go for it?
Yeah.
All right. From my perspective, there's not enough transition at all. In fact, I wouldn't even call this, these are my unfiltered, I should probably be more filtered, but my unfiltered thoughts are that not only is there not enough transition, we shouldn't call this a rezoning, we should call it a redevelopment, right? Because that's really what it is. It's something that all of the residents knew what they were getting when they built their homes. They knew there was an office building. And unlike other developments that we have where you have a home and there's just green space on a map, and it might be an office, it might be an apartment, but they already knew what they were getting into. And they didn't mind it. It was an office building. It was quiet. And now we're kind of changing the pieces on the chessboard. And from that perspective, I think it needs more scrutiny. It needs more participation. It may need more buffers than normal, but I think it needs significantly more transition, right? From my perspective. And I think that's because of the way it is, because we're coming into this built environment, and it's not in an urban core, right? There's a lot of people who say, well, Lori, you're okay with it when it's other places, but this isn't an urban core. I love density. I live downtown. I'm happy with it, but I knew what I was getting into, right? So that's part of my thought. The other thought is if this is a possibility as we move forward, and I have always felt that Highwoods has been one of our great partners, right? They build some beautiful buildings, and I know that they listen. And I would hope that we could look at things that would make this a harmonious environment next to it. I have two other concerns. One is the affordable housing at 5% at 80% AMI means the only people who can afford to live there have to make more than $100,000. That's not affordable housing. And only for 20 years. Parker Poe knows that 20 years is not the industry standard. 30 years is the industry standard. So I would appreciate that to match all the other developments that have come before us. I would like to see phasing within the plan. If you're going to put townhomes next to houses and you're going to have apartments on the other side, then make there a guarantee that they don't end up with this view shed of parking. So have some sort of phase plan that you will build the townhomes first. But again, I would like to see more townhomes. Maybe, 3 times as many townhomes, right, next to it. I don't know what the right number is. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm unfiltered right now. I think I had too much coffee. And then finally, in order to become a multimodal community, the number one thing our residents love are the greenways. And if we're going to get to where people can really ditch the car in order to go wherever they want, we have to make the greenways and our side paths bigger so people feel comfortable about it. I've ridden my bike down Norwell, and I appreciate the residents' comment about how it can seem scary, and I agree. And I would like to see a lot of the communities start to build those wider 10, honestly, 12-foot greenways. You'll be surprised that people will actually come to it because they want the greenway. Eventually, we're going to have islands of multimodal that will eventually be able to connect. But yeah, those are all my thoughts.
Okay, all righty. I'll add my thoughts. Glad you asked about that land in between the two, because I was curious about that. I think we may be setting ourselves up for an ongoing oversight challenge with the way that we're doing our affordable housing right now. To say that we are going to be checking for 20 years all of these apartment complexes that 5% of them are being occupied by people with 80% AMI. I mean, that seems like a huge headache, and it could end up being many employees that have to be doing this checking. I think probably this needs to be thought out differently, and instead of saying something in perpetuity for, 25% of the units are 80% AMI, I think maybe if we did it by size, because that's really what's going to be driving those units to be less, that if we said, oh, these units need to be X% smaller, then that would forever take care of the.
Just from an affordable housing perspective, so you're aware, that doesn't address affordable housing in perpetuity, because the 5% or 80% AMI is tied to their income. The only thing they'll do is charge a little bit less per square footage, but it'll keep going up. 5% at 80% AMI ensures that it's tied to income. That once the supply comes down, or supply goes up, the rates will go with it. But
wouldn't you think that the rates would go up with the salaries going up in the area? I mean, I'm just asking. I'm not playing devil's advocate. I'm just asking.
No, they don't necessarily. The way HUD works and the way this program works is actually tied to their income. And so they reevaluate it every year as their income goes up, and we can always get.
Who does that reevaluation? Is it the town that's doing it, or is it HUD?
So we're out, in the Stable Homes Cary, we actually the developer does that now, but we hope to outsource that work as we do Oasis and some of those others.
So the developer submits the information to whom?
Not the developer, the management company who actually
The management
manages
company submits it to whom?
To whoever the housing services is, yes. Housing Alliance, whoever runs the federal program. To ensure that their income rates match 80% AMI for the Wake County area.
Okay.
Which is at 120.
I don't want to say, we've had zoning conditions before that we've established that required revisiting by our staff, and I don't want us to be doing that same thing here.
Yep.
So if there's some type of, I guess we pay for that through CDBG funds, or what do we do?
Yep.
Okay. All righty. There's no mention of like the type of parking, so I presume it's surface parking? Is that the?
There's no commitment to structured, so it could be either, but we presume it's surface.
All righty. I think one of the challenges that I'm having, and maybe other people here are having, is that we know that this area is going to redevelop north of Weston Parkway, and this is considered an integral part of that redevelopment, to your point. But it's hard for us to understand how that fits in right now, and the way that this information is provided to us, it's vague about what the massing and scale of those 275 units are. So it's hard for us to tell, like, well, where are those buildings positioned? How big does that feel? And we've seen 275 unit buildings, but they vary the massing varies based on whether you've integrated the parking into it, whether you don't integrate the parking in, and so forth. It would be helpful to us if we had some more details about what this is going to be like. For example, I'm not sure how close these buildings are going to be to the neighborhood to the south. I see the pod 2, but where do the buildings go up to in Pod 1? And that may help us too, if we know, oh, well, they're set back, 200 feet. And I'm not even sure, like, what's the size of the office building today? Like, how many feet
It's
tall
just
is that?
shy of 80,000 square feet,
Height.
three-story office building.
Three-story.
A little bit over 40 feet in height. I think there's this sort of central arch feature that might be about 50 feet in height,
Okay, but the general massing of it is 3 stories.
3 stories. And
Yeah, I
80,000
mean,
square feet.
it may be helpful if we don't get renderings, maybe just to point us to buildings that would be massed similarly, but also help us understand how these fit on the site. Because I think that's confusing. I do want to address something that you've addressed already, is that in all the time I've been on council, we've never evaluated a project by what type of tax revenue it gives us. That's just isn't the criteria that we go to. The criteria we look for is a sense of place, and we do look at compatibility or harmony, as Lori just said. Those are the things that we think about. It's exciting to contemplate a redevelopment of Weston, especially north of Weston Parkway, because I think it could really create a sense of place that has not existed for the people who live in this area. But we do want that to transition appropriately. So I think getting some information about what these buildings would be like would be helpful. Look at my notes. I'm sorry, I'm right-handed, but I hurt my hand, so I'm trying to write notes with my left hand, and they look really bad.
wrote that with my
It looks
right,
like a
that's
first
still
grader
bad.
is sitting at the
I
table
can't
with
even
me.
read it.
I know,
I
it's
don't
really
know how
bad. No, it's not that bad, but, I do want to just say really fast, you talked about downzoning. The town does not have authority to initiate a downzoning, but the property owner,
Sure.
if the property owner wanted to initiate a downzoning application, the applicant has the right to do that. So I did want to
Thank you
clarify
for
that in case it was a
clarifying.
little bit
Yes.
confusing. So I think those are my main points, but I'll be interested in seeing how this progresses.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
First of all, thank you for your engagement, and, I would agree with Councilwoman Craig that almost every single time when we have reviewed a project like this, it has only gotten better because of the engagement from the residents. A lot of times, we don't understand when we're looking at the project on the paper, what is exactly going to be what are the pros and cons, and how is it going to impact your lives? So you being here and sharing your experiences with us is definitely helpful. I also see that, the feedback that you gave, that the applicant is in touch with the residents, that shows that there's a commitment. So I do like that. I had a question about the same thing what Councilwoman Bush asked about the Wake County. So that's something that will never get touched, and the buffer stays there, right? The buffer that,
You're talking about the parcel to the south?
yes.
Yes, so that is currently common space for the neighborhood to the south. So it
Okay.
would not be able to redevelop for a commercial use or anything like that.
And thank you so much. I have to agree with Mayor Pro Tem Robinson here that, I feel like, and this is just my humble opinion, that there are too many unknowns right now here on this, what I'm hearing. There could be 22 townhomes, but we don't know whether it is going to be parking and what is the impact going to be. There could be this, but I think having some level of detail would be helpful. That would also give us clarity on what exactly is being proposed here, so that we are not really sitting here assuming things. And the residents also get some comfort on, okay, this is what is being proposed, this works for us, this doesn't work for us. And they will also have an opportunity to say, please don't do this, can we focus on this? And, that will also be a good discussion point. I feel like one of the things that this council has always advocated for is good transition, if I could say that. So I feel like if the townhomes are not there, the transition will go away. So how do we maintain that aspect? I think that's something very concerning to me. But I think everybody kind of touched on other things in bits and pieces, so I appreciate everybody's comments here.
I've always got questions, but thankfully most of mine were asked. One question remains. I want to make sure I understood what Ms. Schwidler was saying about the path. I think what I heard was they're committing to 8 feet, but if 12 feet is required, like when we do the corridor story, we have a study, we have a plan, then the applicant agrees then to do the 12-foot? Okay, and that will be a condition in the rezoning? Okay, thank you.
Aaron, can you clarify? It's a little bit conditioned, so it's not guaranteed that they would do the wider.
Right, so the way that it's written, and we're continuing to work with the applicant on this, but the way the condition's written currently, it essentially says if between the time that, where the rezoning would get approved, or between now, where we are tonight, and the time it got to development plan, assuming the rezoning is approved, if new plans are approved that increase that facility width, they will attempt to meet that facility width as long as they can fit it within the streetscapes they've proposed. It wouldn't require them, modifying those streetscapes, pushing them further into the site at all. So it is a commitment to do more, but it also depends on other plans getting approved in this time frame, whatever that may be, and then also some limitations based on it would have to fit within the 50-foot streetscape.
What are the other plans? Are the town plans, such as our thoroughfare map?
Right, if the town were to adopt like a bike plan, if we passed a bike plan between now and when they got to development plan that required a wider facility, they would then seek to meet the width of that wider facility.
Do we have one under works?
I believe there is a draft bike plan in the
There is a
works,
draft
yes.
bike plan, and it does specify
12
a
feet.
wider 12
Okay,
feet.
okay.
It's in the process, it's in this last draft, so.
That's why I was at, because
Okay.
the last thing we want is doing this, right?
What is
with a
the
bike plan.
timeline? Going back to the special planning area, what is the timeline for the draft bike plan? Does anyone know?
We'll follow up.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have time.
And I just want to be really transparent because I saw both Chad and Justin here, and I met with them and staff. So everybody knows I did meet with them and heard the concerns firsthand and had a nice conversation, and everybody was lovely and reasonable. And thank you all for your respectful emails and your really clear communication, and everybody being willing to make this a conversation and a back and forth. And it's nice when it feels like working together when it's like this, and in lieu of fighting. So I just want to say that I appreciate the communication style everybody's been using thus far. But what I didn't share, because after I met with the residents that I believe both have homes that abut on Juliet Circle, I then met with the applicant on site and did a site tour. And after, which the applicant was also reasonable, it was a good conversation. I wish all rezonings, the communication was like this, if I'm being completely honest. But what the applicant doesn't know is that after that, I left there and I drove around the neighborhood and I got in my car and I kind of looked. So for me, I think there's a significant geographical factor here that I do quite like the additional buffers. I absolutely love that we're talking about being really sort of prescriptive with the buffer when it comes to evergreens. And if anything, I think that might be something, I'll be honest, I don't understand why our buffer requirements don't already include evergreen shielding.
They do.
Adequate, I guess is the word I want to use, right? I just feel like I don't think there's going to be any redevelopment or infill project at this point, or probably in a lot of the past ones, that aren't going to want actual, like you said, the view shed, actual shielding, because we're going to be a lot cozier as neighbors, I think, in a lot of areas. And I feel like that really makes a lot of sense as far as what's required to begin with, so it doesn't need to be a condition. The applicant was extremely receptive to my idea that I think the farther southwest border would be a great place for some native longleafs. That would also give some height to that story. That was my other concern. Let me move on to the things that give me some pause with this project, and it primarily is looking at Pod 1, wanting to know where that building is going to be. After having driven through the neighborhood, I felt like as you went you go in and you go down, it's downhill. So that pod 1, depending on where the building is, that did feel very uphill to me. So that being a 5-story building, replacing what is there, and it does have that arch, so the building's not huge, but it's not a small building either. I couldn't see the building at all. Of course, we still have all the leaves, but 5 stories, I think, would feel quite looming potentially. I don't know. And it's always the mayor that asks for the balloon test. And this is my first time saying I really would like to see, not only would I like a balloon test, I want to personally drive down and sit at the, where the circle goes back around and starts heading south so I can see it myself. Because I think you won't really be able to see much more than probably half a story, but I just really like to know that because I was surprised to see how downhill that was on the southwest corner. And speaking of the southwest corner, I feel as though a more significant buffer down there is appropriate as well. I don't believe that, I think it was 30 feet, is that correct, or 32, 35?
It ranges from
32.
15 to 30.
15 to
along
30,
the
that's what
southern.
it was. I just feel as though, particularly on the wedge, the east side of that wedge, if this makes any sense whatsoever, I'd be shocked, so I'm more than happy to point to a map. But I feel like that buffer does need to be increased, primarily because that is the downhill portion, so a fence isn't, I don't think, going to achieve the effect, the buffering effect, that it will up the hill towards the east side of the buffer where it is also thicker. Although those homes are closer, but there's that topography there to deal with. Bear with me, my hand's fine, but I can't read my own handwriting either.
You can send your notes later also.
I know, I might need to send my notes. I just got to say, one thing I'm a little confused about, I have to admit, this is a first, and I've only been on council for 3 years, but the holder of your master HOA is the applicant in this case, correct? And that is unusual, is it not?
I have no information about the HOA structure out there, so I can't.
Usually HOAs are initially owned by the developer and then they give them over to the.
Yeah.
But they held on to this one.
Well, I just don't know what to make of that, and I'm not sure I fully understand how a master HOA works. And so that's just something I'd like, Carissa needs to learn a little bit more about master HOAs and how that works. Otherwise, I found the townhomes to be, I thought, an appropriate transition.
Kill myself.
Without those townhomes there, that being a parking lot, that doesn't make any sense to me. That does not, that being the location for a parking lot, and in all fairness, that wasn't what we were discussing when we met, but, we didn't get that into the weeds of every condition, so I don't believe the applicant was trying to obfuscate that or anything. I don't think that's a good use of that transition space there, it being parking lot, particularly because of the nearby homes. Those lots are small. Those are very big homes on very small lots. So there's just not a whole lot of space there between what would be probably headlights in those homes.
And
So-
if pod 2 is not parking, where's the parking gonna go? Like if there are townhomes in pod 2, but we still have,
Probably being pod 1.
but
Pod
is
2
it still,
probably
are the
they
lights
need
still
more.
shining at the trees or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My assumption when touring, and they were showing me there could be some, I believe, auxiliary uses, some companion uses back there, along there, I think I asked, what is that? And, it could be storage or something like that. But my assumption was that across, that between the homes, physically between the homes and parking would be those townhomes.
Yeah.
And I felt like that not only served as a buffer, or serves as a transition type between the multifamily and the single family, but it also served as, I'll call it a parking lot buffer, for lack of a better word. I also made an assumption, and I don't know that this is what I should have done. I made the assumption that the massing of the building would be where the current building is. And that's what I can't wrap my brain around is, maybe it will be on the west side of Pod 1, or will the buildings be separate? That's information I'd really like to have, is actually where the buildings are going to be. That would help tremendously. And
Or at least worst-case scenario.
yes, or tell me where they won't be. That'll satisfy me as well, right? So it's a very different project if those buildings are oriented significantly to the west or to the southwest. So that's I'd just like to have a better idea, if possible. I know that I can't.
And is it more
Require
than
it.
one building? Is it one building
is it more
or
than-
is it multiple buildings?
Because that will make it feel less, it being multiple buildings.
Boy, it sure would be great to have structured parking. Otherwise, I think you're going to have a massive amount of impervious surface, as is there right now.
Yeah, it is a very large parking lot
Right.
with lots of trees, though. It's
Yep.
it's one of the nicer parking lots I've ever been in, actually. I have to say, it's probably top 10, it's better than a Disney parking lot. I
Top 10.
could have stood in that parking lot and talked all night. I think I tried to, because I was enjoying myself too much. And the other thing I wanted to mention is I very much would like the opportunity to read the corridor study plan before voting on this project, if at all humanly possible. And if that's not possible, I'd like to know that.
Staff will try to bring more information to you once we have it.
Thank you. I know it's trying to rush something that probably should not be rushed at all, but it's pertinent. And I think that's as much as I can read.
Mr. Smith?
Well, first of all, I was glad to hear about the handwriting and the struggles you have, because I have arthritis, and every time I write notes, I can't read them either. So I got the same problem. So
3 out of
we have a lot of things in common. So, and I'm glad you hit on the applicant as the HOA. I found that when it was being explained, I found that interesting. And, I think you said it earlier. What happens is, after a period of time, the applicant usually goes away, but there are cases when they stay on that when you're going to do a development like this, you kind of bring in the professionals that know how to do that. Now, full disclosure, we've done a lot with Highwoods over the years, and they're great. They're great. They're great with offices. They're great. And, but this is not an office. And, Lori brought it up right away. The first thing that jumped out at me is the whole lack of transition. And I loved the phrase, it's a rezoning, but it's really like a redevelopment. I think that really hits on the head, where we might have to be looking at different things with all the infill that's coming and everything else. That really, to me, spoke volumes when I was listening to that. The reality to me as I listen to this, and I'm going to just, I've heard all these other things. I tend to agree with all the concerns. I just think that when we're trying to force fit a routine, to me, this design is so bland. Nothing jumps out as the potential for a sense of place. Nothing. So we really need, I think, folks that get involved, that maybe I was just great, like I said, with offices and that type of development, but we're in a whole new world now. And this whole application, the way I look at it, for me, screams ordinary. It doesn't give any opportunity, in my mind, to address all these concerns we have, and there's a lot. And my fear is that we're going to spend the next year and a half micromanaging every nuance, every condition, because we're trying to force fit the old adage of mine of a size 10 foot into a size 7 shoe. And we're just going to be spending an inordinate amount of energy trying to make this work as we try to protect those citizens and at the same time respect the development that the applicant wants to go forward in an affordable way. the reality, I was reading the Triangle Business Journal, I think it was today, and I think there's 2 big articles about major office buildings being destroyed as they put in apartments. I think they were in Durham. One of them was. I'm not sure where the other one was. So this is happening all around us. I almost, in my world, I wish this would go back to the drawing board and this be re-looked at, hearing these concerns, and just come back to us. Because I really am concerned that we're listening to all these examples we just gave, where they only dropped 3 units, 299 to 296 to 297, and then we're going to go back, and now we're going to debate, is it a 15-foot buffer? Can we squeeze 20 out of it? And the real questions ought to be, how do we handle that transition? How do we make it smooth? How do we protect those people that are there, but respect that we have to look at things with different density and so forth? I think this is going to be a tough challenge for you all, because there's going to be a lot of work, and from the applicant's perspective, a lot of money spent trying to find an agreement that everybody can live with, when maybe the best step would be to take a step back and say, maybe we re-looked at this whole application wrong. Maybe we should be looking at it where we now hear these concerns and we rethink what goes there. If I have to leave the applicant with anything, we're struggling with sense of place and transition, or I am, and I'd like to think from what I've heard, it's here too, and that a lot of that doesn't come out on this. And the only thing I'll say about the minutia is, you all know my concern about wooden fences. I know they sound environmentally good, and God, they look good for the first 3 years. And then, all you have to do is drive down the Cary Parkway, or just down the Cary Parkway down by Coorsdale Drive, or go through Lockmere, and look at the beautiful new fences, and then right next to them, the fences that have been around a while. And I can't imagine, when we're dealing with this height, this density, a 6-foot wooden fence does anything. I can't even believe it. I'm reading it here as a bullet. So I'm going to leave you. That was always one of my pet peeves. So you do with it what you want. But there are so many creative ways to create a buffer that maybe a little bit over time will fill in. We don't want to overplant with trees. We want to have the distance so that those trees live. But there's a lot you can put between those trees that make a great buffer and probably save you money than a wooden fence. So those are my thoughts. Just wanted to share them.
Can I just share one more thing, though? I don't think I agree with the sense of place. I just want to say it. That corridor, it's been a while since I've driven down Weston. And I honestly, I think it's lovely. And I trust that Highwoods would make this property fit right into that corridor. I personally feel that that corridor already has a sense of place. It's green and lush and well landscaped and, trimmed and neat. So that, I'm assuming that this new development, whatever it ends up being, will look just the same and fit in flawlessly with the ones around it. If that's not going to be the case, I feel like that would look strange. That's just my opinion. I think it would, because there's so much continuity in that area, it having its own unique sense of place, I feel might be, a little.
Point is, I think we're agreeing. I don't know what we're disagreeing about. That's exactly what I think of as sense of place, that it kind of blends, it has its own look, it's unique. So,
But let me just say, the zoning goes with the land, it does not go with the owner. So you put in conditions on the off chance that the person before you who you trust isn't going to be the one who develops it.
But isn't this part of the same master HOA?
Doesn't matter. They can sell it. I don't know if there is, even if there is an HOA for the
Yeah, that would be
commercial.
part of it.
Normally, there's not, is there?
Yeah, we haven't looked into what the HOA situation is out there.
But to be fair, and I think we made the mistake, or maybe misspoke at some of our council meetings, we need to be extremely clear that as much as we have enjoyed and respect and value the partnership with Highwoods, and they were part of the community that really built Weston and made it the way it looks, nothing is forever, and it goes with the land. And so to ever say at this council table, this is me, I'm only going to speak for myself, to ever say at this council table that we trust the developer is antithetical to what our job is here. Our job here is to make it as rock solid as possible, because I will just say from my own experience, developers who we absolutely trusted and respected have sold the land, and then the next one that came in didn't do all the things that were promised, and we were left with a subpar development. So every day I can say I respect the partnership, but markets are markets, and the economy is the economy, and something could happen tomorrow. And our job here is to ensure that we solidify that in the conditions that we agree to. So that is just my important part.
Sure.
Yeah, and respectfully, I do have every right to trust certain developers. It is a continuous corridor in which they are heavily invested. So I do think sometimes in the spirit of trying to get to best, we're so hyper prescriptive that this becomes almost a torturous project. You know what I mean? Like it's, I think sometimes we can trust that they're not going to sink their own ship, nor will, if they sell the property, someone else. Now, don't get me wrong, not on a lot of things. There's plenty of aspects of a project that are, we need to tie it up in a bow, but.
I think what Lori is saying is that.
I know, you guys, every
We've been
single
burned.
time I go out of my way to say this, I get the same admonition, and I completely understand what you're saying, and I respectfully disagree.
Anyone else?
We will all disagree until it happens to one of us, right? And I definitely appreciate that. I'm sure in my first, couple of terms, I said, oh, they're great. And then I was like, oh, no, they sold it.
It's sort of like me getting punished because my older brother was rotten, when the rest of us were great kids, you know what I mean? It's very similar to
The thing is that in perpetuity is a long time, right? I mean, when we rezone this goes on forever until somebody comes in and rezones it again. And so it could be now, it could be the next 20 years, or it could be the next 400 years. We don't know how long this is going to be. And once buildings get built, there is many decades that it's going to be there,
I understand that.
I will never be apologetic for asking applicants to uphold our standards and build a community that people love, because I have seen the mistakes that we have made over the time where we trusted and didn't get what we thought.
And I will have to say that council members sitting at this table long before I ever sat at the table had this arduous, detail-oriented goal of making Cary look like it looks, right? And was that likely? It's more expensive to build in Cary, and I've heard from developers both, far and wide that, yeah, I'm not sure I want to build in Cary, but when I do build in Cary, I get more bang for my buck. So we set the quality and the standards high. It's why I moved here. And I'm not saying that by not putting this, it's any lower quality. I'm just saying that that was the bar, and I saw what happened when the bar was lowered. And so, I learned my lesson by trusting, and I totally get it. What do they say, fool me once or fool me twice? And I just won't be fooled again.
And I do think we have a responsibility to uphold what those who preceded us did. I mean, as Lori just said, the people, Coca Booth, Harold Ritter, and so forth, they came in and they had the standard for our community that was set very high. And what we have today is because of generation after generation of leadership that held to that. So I don't want us to start being cavalier with our rezonings and saying, oh, well, it doesn't matter about this, at least we got that, and that kind of thing. I mean, that's where things break down, so, yeah.
Anyone else? So thank you all for being here and for your feedback and for your involvement. What you have heard is a council of 90 years plus experience talking about something that's not even a decision. They're just discussing. And that gives you a sample of the deliberation process that this council goes through on every topic that we address. So that's the good news. You heard a lot about, we would like to see this, we would like to see that. That's because we have very limited authority on what we can require. And so therefore, we're making suggestions, we're giving ideas, we're giving feedback to the applicant. Now, the applicant, as has been pointed out, is one that's very familiar to us. Ms. Schwedler represents several different property owners, and she has a reputation. So she's been involved with us. She knows what we expect. And Highwoods Property has already been said. It's been a great partner with the town for many, many years. However, as you have heard from the feedback, they've got a lot of challenges with this proposal. So where are we? So there was a neighborhood meeting about a year ago, and tonight was your first opportunity to provide feedback to the council. You're invited back to every meeting until there's a decision. You can speak at Public Speaks Out if you would like. And if that's not good enough, you can send us an email. If that's not good enough, you can contact us in other ways. The person who's going to have the latest and greatest information is going to be Ms. Erin Puckett. And she will say, well, the developer has now offered up this, or the applicant has offered up this. So she would probably be the best one, but you can contact any of us at any time. And again, we welcome you back to any council meeting if you would like. Please continue to work with the applicant and the applicant's representatives because they care about what's going on. They care about you. It may not seem that way to you, but they do. They care about the town that they're in. So if you work together, we may find some common ground, may find something that works, may not. We don't know. So what happens next is it will go to an advisory board of citizens called the Planning and Zoning Board. And their job is to, one, provide feedback, but two, give us a recommendation as to whether or not it matches the Cary community plan. And so that is one of the recommendations we'll get back. And that is going to be one of the data points where we will make our decision. Our decision will be made on staff recommendations, on the advisory board recommendation, and of course, our citizens' recommendations. So that's where we are. This is a multi-month process, and since there is another plan in the works, I'm thinking it's going to be later rather than sooner. There's no telling, and I see the town manager squirming when I say that.
Let me comment. I think first and foremost, Highwoods is not the only owner of property in this corridor. So, while they are certainly the most impactful and the most critical, in my view, there are other property owners that are involved in this corridor. Certainly, the ideal optimal situation would be to have this sub-area plan be completed before any rezonings come forward. And we communicated as such several years ago but the town has to do work. Yep. And the adjacent property owners have to do work, and Highwoods has been interested in the past in partnering with us on that. While we're in the process of doing the work, obviously a request for rezoning came forward. The goal for us is we'll see how much can be done prior to the completion of the plan. Also indicated that we would not entertain a second rezoning coming forward until the plan is completed. And so it really depends on what the council's level of comfort vis-a-vis the developers obviously heard the conversations here this evening on the best understanding, the best view of it for all concerned would be to have the plan be completed and considered and contemplated. And so they have some thinking to do about that, because that changes the timeline potentially significantly.
And the applicant has every right to bring forward whatever.
Absolutely.
At any time, well, as the process goes, and our decision will be based on the information we have at the time.
Right.
And whether we like it or not. That's what our information, our decision will be.
Yeah, and we don't, and it's also important to note that this sub-area plan will be subservient or drawn from Imagine Cary. And so as you heard Aaron speak to, Imagine Cary does support it. So every expectation would be, is so would the sub-area plan, but it does give you a better understanding of it would give you a much better understanding of the larger context of the area. So there's no reason to think that they would be in conflict.
Okay, very good. And again, thanks, and you're welcome back at any time, and we appreciate all of you being here. We're going to move to our second public hearing. It's 25 RAZ09 Fairbanks Road rezoning, and Assistant Planning Director Katie Dry will introduce the item. And once again, council will not take action on this tonight. Instead, it will go to our Planning and Zoning Board for their review and recommendation. Ms. Dry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request to rezone approximately .45 acres at 1505 Fairbanks Road. The site is on the north side of Fairbanks Road, just northeast of Chapel Hill Road. It includes a single detached home. And to the south of the subject property is an office complex, and the area otherwise generally consists of a variety of housing types and lot sizes. To give a bit more context as to the proximity of the location, you can see the site is just north of Chapel Hill Road, the SRI Temple is to the south, and the Park Place Shopping Center is just to the west. There are currently no power lines along the site's frontage on Fairbanks Road, and no stream buffers on the site according to Cary's GIS maps. The Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Master Plan does not propose any greenway corridors within or adjacent to the site. Chapel Hill Road does have a proposed street side trail on the north side, just to the south. Fairbanks Road is a collector street, and the nearest transit service is on Chapel Hill Road, Go Triangle 310. The current zoning is residential 20, and the applicant is requesting to rezone to R8 conditional use. Should the rezoning be approved, it would be possible to split the lot into 2 detached dwelling lots through an exempt subdivision. Now, having explained the site characteristics, I'll take a minute to explain the exempt subdivision provisions and how it could apply to the site. The North Carolina General Statutes exempts certain divisions of land from subdivision requirements if they meet certain parameters related to the size and the number of lots. This is due to the site's small size and the number of lots that could be created under the rezoning, and it could likely develop as an exempt subdivision. The reason this is important is the typical site development standards of the LDO would not be required. This includes buffers, streetscapes, right-of-way dedication, road and pedestrian improvements. However, dimensional standards of the LDO, including minimum lot size, setbacks, and height, would still apply. In this case, only the development standards that are offered via zoning condition would apply if the rezoning is approved and the site develops under the exempt provision. So, in this case, the applicant has offered the following zoning conditions. They are proposing to have right-of-way dedication and road frontage improvements, including sidewalk along Fairbanks Road. They're also proposing that there will be 2 car garages for each unit, and the car garages will be wired for future electric vehicle charging. A preliminary analysis with the Imagine Cary Community Plan finds that policies in the Live, Shape, Move, and Rich chapters apply. For the Live chapter, the proposed rezoning would redevelop an existing detached dwelling lot between an office location and other detached dwelling lots to allow a total of 2 lots. The anticipated exempt subdivision requirements would not trigger LDO requirements for buffers, and the applicant has not offered buffers as conditions. This makes full consistency with the shape guidance on the development and appearance and quality of a development somewhat challenging. Although the impacts will primarily affect only the 2 residential lots that could be developed under this proposed rezoning. The move chapter policies may be partially met as the applicant has included zoning conditions to provide right-of-way dedication and frontage improvements and sidewalk construction on Fairbanks Road. Regarding the enriched chapter, the zoning condition for EV charging wiring in the garages for both dwellings would help to promote policies for energy efficiency and sustainable energy. The future growth framework designation for the site is traditional neighborhood. This designation does support a modest mix of housing types within this area. A virtual neighborhood meeting was held in June of this year. There were 8 attendees with questions and comments regarding the potential size and appearance of the future dwellings, and there have not been any calls or emails since the neighborhood meeting. Staff did mail notice of the public hearing to property owners within 800 feet of the subject site. This exceeds the state's and Cary's LDO requirements, and a sign was also posted on the site. This concludes my presentation. Glenda Top, the applicant's representative, will provide her comments, and following the public hearing, I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Joy.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Glenda Top with Glenda S. Top and Associates. I'm here tonight representing the applicant, who is Clear Construction Group. I'll just be very brief since staff has pretty much gone over the whole rezoning. The current zoning is R20. We're asking for R8 conditional use. The proposed use is to build 2 detached single-family homes on lots with a minimum of 8,000 square feet. As Katie pointed out, the existing zoning adjacent to the property is O&I, and there are different residential zoning categories. On the growth framework plan, it's traditional neighborhood, and they do allow both small and large lots, so we are in compliance. Those that attended the neighborhood meeting were in support of the proposed rezoning. The proposed rezoning supports and facilitates redevelopment and infill housing in a mature location in Cary. The rezoning acknowledges the neighborhood in which it exists as a mixture of zoning classifications. The proposed rezoning provides an appropriate transition between the existing land uses. Additionally, the proposed rezoning helps to support the revitalization of targeted redevelopment corridors in older portions of Cary where conditions have changed. As staff pointed out, this rezoning is basically a lot off of Chapel Hill Road, and this portion of Chapel Hill Road has seen a lot of changes over the last several years. So given the nature of the area, we do believe that the R8 zoning is appropriate for this location, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Top. So now is time for the public hearing for 25 REZ09 Fairbanks Road rezoning. And first, I'll call on the clerk for any written comments and to call on any registered speakers.
We had 1 written comment and no registered speakers. Jim and Linda Kane submitted written questions on the rezoning, asking whether the residential A conditional use zoning and its conditions would remain in effect if the property is sold, and whether duplexes, townhomes, or other housing types would be allowed. They also inquired about minimum structure size requirements, potential rezoning of other nearby properties, and the timeline for construction and property maintenance. And no registered speakers.
Thanks. If you are attending this evening and would like to speak at this public hearing, now's your opportunity, and I would invite you forward at this time. Anyone to speak at this public hearing? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, open it up to council members for questions or comments.
I don't have any, no comments.
This will be forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Board for their review and recommendation as to whether or not it matches the Cary Community Plan, and we will see it in a few months. Thank you, Ms. Dry. We now move to our third public hearing, 25 REZ01, which is at 6708 Bandelier Lane. Principal Planning Principal Planner Rachel Smith will introduce the item. Council will not take action on this rezoning tonight. It will be referred to our Planning and Zoning Board for their review and recommendation, and will return to council at a future meeting. Ms. Smith.
Good evening, Council. This is a rezoning request for a half-acre site located at 6708 Bandelier Lane. The property is located northwest of the intersection of Bandelier and Sanders Grove Lane, which is in Cary's extraterritorial jurisdiction. The site is presently vacant. Annexation is not requested at this time, but would be required to connect to Cary utilities. The site is located within the historic Carpenter Special Planning Area, shown here in red, and also within the National Register of Historic Places Carpenter Historic District, shown in blue. The site does not contain any historic resources. The current zoning is Office, Research, and Development, or ORD, and the applicant requests to rezone to Residential 20 Conditional Use, or R20 CU, to allow the site to be developed with a single detached dwelling. The Jordan Lake Watershed Protection Overlay District will remain. According to Cary's GIS data, stream buffer is located on the northern boundary of the site. Across the street from the subject property is the Cary-owned CF Farrell store site. There is presently no funding for site improvements for this property. The soon-to-be adopted, updated Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources System Plan shifts the proposed greenway, which was originally shown on the subject site's Bandelier frontage, south to Cary's property. As a result, no greenway improvements are expected along the site frontage. Bandelier Lane is a local street adjacent to the property, and there are no overhead power lines on the site's Bandelier frontage. The power lines are on the south side of the road. The proposed zoning conditions include limiting the use to one detached dwelling and associated accessory uses. There's a prohibition on vinyl siding. As written, this condition would apply to all structures on the site. A traditional pitched roof line for the principal structure, and garage doors, whether in an attached or detached garage, would be to the side or the rear of the principal structure. There will be only one driveway, and it shall meet access management standards. Staff has done a preliminary evaluation of the request against the Imagine Cary Community Plan. Our analysis starts with the historic Carpenter Special Planning Area. The site lies in the Crossroads Village sub-area, where infill development is expected to be context-sensitive and compatible with the historic setting. New development should transition appropriately to adjacent historic sites, and use, mass, scale, setbacks, density, architecture, and landscaping should fit the area. The Crossroads Village is envisioned as having a mix of uses and housing that revives the vibrancy of the historic crossroads. The 2010 Historic Preservation Master Plan builds on the Carpenter Special Planning Area. It emphasizes protecting Cary's historic resources and preserving historic context. To support these policies, the applicant has proposed modest architectural conditions to ensure the new home's building materials, roofline, and garage doors complement the historic character of the district. Additionally, the 20-foot roadway setback for the R20 district generally aligns with the setbacks of the existing historic properties fronting on Bandelier Lane. For the move chapter, the applicant has committed to only one driveway to serve the site. Bandelier Lane has a 60-foot right-of-way, which is sufficient for a local street. Here we also note that without the rezoning, development of the site with the permitted use under the current ORD zoning would require a development plan, triggering LDO requirements like perimeter buffers, streetscapes, and sidewalks. If the rezoning is approved for a detached home, these elements will not be required by the home's building permit. Given the small half-acre size of the lot, a detached home is likely a better fit than a non-residential use. A neighborhood meeting was held in March. There were no attendees other than the applicant and staff. There's been one call from a neighbor with questions, but no concerns with the detached dwelling use as proposed. Staff mailed notice of the public hearing to property owners within 800 feet of the subject site. This exceeds state and Cary LDO requirements for notice, and we posted a sign on the subject site. This concludes my presentation. Following the public hearing, I'm available to answer your questions. I will note the property owner is here. They don't plan to speak, but they are here if you have questions of them.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. So now it's time for the public hearing for 25 RAZ01, which is at 67 and 08 Bandelier Lane. And first, I'll call on the clerk for any written comments and call on any registered speakers.
No written comments, no registered speakers.
So if you're in the audience and would like to speak at this public hearing, now's your opportunity, and I would invite you forward. Anyone to speak at this public hearing? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Open it up to council members for questions or comments.
None. No. Thank you, staff, for adding the information about what was marked as future park.
This will go to the Planning and Zoning Board for their review and recommendation and will return to us in a few months. We have no discussion items, and that concludes our agenda, so I declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you.